Welcome to the Low-Code for All Developers course. My name is Paul and I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled, to guide you the coming period. You are at the start of an exciting adventure. Within a short period of time, you will go through the complete cycle of software development. You will get to know how to interview people, how to put their demands on paper, how to provide them samples of their upcoming applications and how to build a complete software project. Some of you might already be familiar with most of this and you are only here to add low-code development to your skill set. Others might be familiar with only one or two aspects and want to become a no-code, low-code professional. No matter of what your background is, this will be an adventure where you will build your own application in a uniquely powerfully low-code environment. And I, Paul, get the chance to do this with you. So, I am thrilled. Thrilled of you being here and thrilled of standing here in front of you. I also have to introduce Linda to you. Linda is my partner and she will sometimes interrupt me to show examples of what I discuss in my lectures. Linda, can you say hi to my friends?
Hi everybody, I am Linda, and as Paul already said, I will sometimes pop in when I think that he forgets something or when I think that you want to know more. I am happy to see you here and hope that you will enjoy our time together. Let's go back to Paul.
In this first lecture, we will be going through some basics. We will introduce some terminology as well as our design methodology. But if that is all familiar to you, don't run away, because I like you to get to know me and, in the second part of this class, I will help you to set up your own low-code development environment. In addition, I will tell you what you have to do to pass this course and receive your Low-Code for All certificate. Are you ready? Wait a sec. I am thirsty and I'll have a sip and then we will start. Okay, I am back. Before we start with the power of low-code environments, let's have a look at our design methodology. To design an application, you have to go through a couple of steps, also named phases. After a customer has indicated that they want an application, you first talk to the customer and to the end user about what they are looking for. Combined with your own experience, you propose a solution and when accepted, you build it, you test it, and finally you implement it in the working environment. These phases can be called conception, analysis, design, construction, testing, and deployment. Roughly speaking, there are two types of methodologies for application design: traditional application design, and the agile design method. Let's have a quick look at each of them. Building applications used to be very time-consuming. In addition, very specialized knowledge was required to deal with topics such as database design, system security, coding and making the user interface. To have all those people working together, design methods were developed that can in general be grouped together as the traditional design methodologies, sometimes called waterfall methods. The application design starts at the top, and, like a waterfall, they go down until they arrive at the big lake at the bottom where the application sometimes is used by hundreds or thousands of end users. In the pictures next to me, the yellow color demonstrates the involvement of the customer or end user. The customer usually starts with a need for automation. They then often step towards an outside software company, or an internal department, who takes on the project. In this traditional method, the customer is usually only involved in the initial analysis and during the final testing. The rest of the development is done mostly independently by the internal department or by the outside software company. For each stage there are specialists involved. Professionals in the traditional method include the analyst who describes the customer requirements, the important database designer who looks what type of information is required and what the most effective way is to store that information, the programmer who makes the step from a written design to a working application, the security developer who looks at which roles or which people are allowed to have access to which information, the front-end developer, also known as the graphical designer, who takes care of an attractive user interface, and finally the application testers who not only check if the data is correctly processed, but also if the new application aligns with the tasks of the intended end users. Project managers make sure that everybody stayed on the same page and is working towards the same end result. To ensure this, a lot of communication is required between the various specialists, and usually the next phase only starts once the previous state was completed and is signed off by the project manager and sometimes by the customer. Projects often took 2 years and were very costly. In the market, these high costs of software development eventually resulted in the creation of standard packages for companies that could not, or did not want to, carry the investment to have something custom built for themselves. This approach to application design started to change at the end of the 90s of the previous century when the first prototyping tools appeared. With prototyping, developers could already present end users with a first impression of what screens and reports would look like. Instead of going through pages and pages of descriptions and specifications, customers could see what they would get, and sign off on that. This drastically improved the communication between customers and developers, and it gave every specialist a better understanding of the end goal, a better understanding of what they were working on. These prototypes usually could not yet be used as an actual application, they still required the coding to get secure and stable data processing. But as the definition of the prototypes became more standardized, it became more and more possible to automate part of these processes.
Hello, this is where I pop in. As Paul just mentioned, prototyping resulted into automation of coding, and actually that is quite understandable, because in data processing, many actions are the same. Let's take a shop on the internet, an e-commerce shop. An e-commerce shop uses some basic information. They have products that they want to sell, they have customer information to know where they have to ship the products to, and they have an online shopping cart that shows the products that the customer wants to buy. All this information is stored in tables. Therefore, in this situation, there is a table for products, a table for customer information, and a table for the shopping cart. Although the information in each of these tables is different, the functions for each table are very similar. A staff member of the company wants to be able to add products, to modify them, for example to change the price, and, if they have the rights to do so, they even might want to delete products from the table. The same applies for customers. They also need to be added and modified. And, if the staff member has the right to do so, they even want to do that for the shopping cart, for example when the customer calls for support. As mentioned, the information is different for each table, but the actions are the same: add, change and delete. Once the prototype is defined, instead of having to code all of the same actions every time ourselves, this can be done for us by the system. This was the first automation of programming.
Once we automated these steps, we realized that we could automate many other steps of programming that used to be done manually. For example, everybody understands that we cannot have two different products with identical product numbers, with the same identifier. Therefore, if somebody tries to add a product with a product number that is already in use, an error message must appear. Making the code for this error message in Java requires coding another 6 lines. 6 lines, plus documentation, for every table, products, customers, shopping cart. 6 lines that could simply be automated by asking the developer if duplicates are allowed in a table. Similar benefits can be achieved when entering and validating dates or postal codes. As more and more got automated, less and less code had to be written manually, and we arrived at low-code environments. That less code had to be written also resulted in a dramatic shortening of the development cycle. Suddenly it made no sense anymore to exchange large specification documents between the various specialists. With less time required for coding, application designers were able to do more and more themselves, thereby further improving productivity.
Don't forget to mention that for many programmers, their job became much more interesting.
Yes, you are right, but I get to that in a minute, when we discuss the agile design process. This change in operational activities, that was caused by low-code environments, led to a completely new approach to application design. It first resulted into design by prototyping, and then to what is now called the agile design process. The agile design process is an iterative approach towards application design, where the steps in traditional design can be done by individual specialists who each can refer back to an elaborate description of what they have to do. With the agile design process, you always work in a team, usually including an end user. It are often small teams, sometimes no more than 1 or 2 developers and the end user. As Linda already mentioned, for many programmers, this made their work much more interesting. You can see an agile design process as a continued process of providing prototypes, each time asking the end user the question, "Is this what you mean?" This might sound very time-consuming, but, when using low-code environments, it works extremely efficiently. With the waterfall process, end users are often overwhelmed by the endless specifications that are presented to them after the analysis stage. They have to sign off on a document of which they often have problems visualizing the consequences down the line. Originally, prototyping was therefore often used as an improvement in communication with the customer during the analysis phase. a tool to help make the wishes and requirements of end users clear, whereafter the design and coding could take place. With modern low-code environments, the prototyping, the database design and the coding emerge together into one environment. The result of this is that once you provide a prototype, you are already defining, even coding, the actual screens. When you define the allowed length of, for example, the product name, you are already building the database. Instead of communicating through a document that a user has to sign off on, that when a postal code is entered, the entry should be validated against existing postal codes, it now takes less time to already create a table with postal codes and show the user that validation does take place. The very different approach towards application design that low-code environments offer does have two requirements. The first, a very structured environment with a good documentation facility so that the functionality of the application can be analyzed without having to use the application. And secondly, it requires application developers that are not only skilled in the various components of application design, from database design to user interface, but who also have the communication skills to discuss requirements with end users, and present their professional opinions towards those end users. In other words, developers that are able to explain why they choose for a certain approach. Instead of having specialists on every individual component of application design, design in a low-code environment is done by generalists that are proficient in every phase. We call such a person a full-stack developer. A developer who is able to take into consideration, and define, every aspect of application design.
In large corporations that use low-code development, they often split the database design and the data security from the application design. Database design and security are done on corporate level, taking the interests of all the different departments into account. With good data security in place, individual departments can receive more freedom to develop their own applications to support their departmental objectives. While keeping data integrity into account, such an approach reduces the work pressure on central development departments, and it drastically improves the ability of departments to react to operational opportunities or requirements.
Thanks Linda, appreciated. Let's get back to the full-stack developer. The objective of this course is to provide you with the knowledge, the tools and the basic experience to become a full-stack developer.
During the course, you will make use of Vinyl, a low-code environment that was designed by Tom Kennedy and his team in the United States of America. It was not the first low-code design environment that he worked on. Vinyl's roots go back to 1978 and this is the fourth generation of low-code environments, each benefiting from the latest jumps in technology. We have chosen for Vinyl based on this history. Over these decades, its predecessors have been used to build the core database applications for industries such as banking, retail, manufacturing, hospitals and other healthcare solutions as well as for many government systems. This experience has not just resulted into a very productive low-code platform, but Vinyl also has the robustness and security that make it a preferred choice to create enterprise-grade applications. Only brought to market in 2018, Vinyl has already won several awards and is being used for mission-critical systems in more than 50 industries. This includes customers such as Otis Elevators, the U.S. Ministry of Defense, the iHeartMedia conglomerate with 186 radio stations, and America's oldest retailer, Brooks Brothers. And now, you get your hands on it. You will experience that with Vinyl you can build full-fledged applications in days. In no time at all, you can help customers and end users with reliable solutions that, with their consistent user interface, are not only easy to use, but that can also easily be changed to meet changing business needs.
Here we go. This is what most of you came for today. Learning how to create enterprise-grade applications fast. In this first lecture you will set up your own low-code design environment. From there, you will set your first steps in low-code development and before you know it, you will build your own applications. To set up your own environment, you should have received a user ID and a password. If you did not yet receive them, then contact your teacher to ask for them. Once you have received them, you can continue this lecture. If you don't have a user ID and password, feel free to continue this lecture to get a first look at Vinyl's workbench. If you have your user ID and password ready, then let's start. I am so excited that I get to give you the first glance of Vinyl. Together we will enjoy many useful adventures there and this is your first step towards that. Open your internet browser and go to lowcode4all.com/academy. You should now get this logon screen. Enter your user ID and password and press Welcome to enter the world of Vinyl. You now have the workbench of Vinyl in front of you. If you don't get the Vinyl workbench, then your environment has not yet been set up for you. In that case, just contact your teacher and you will be quickly on the road to productivity. During the coming lectures, everything that you see here will become very familiar to you. But let's already have a first look. The workbench is from where everything happens in Vinyl. From the workbench you have direct access to the 3 layers of Vinyl: the data layer, in blue, the business rules, in red, and the definition of the user interface in green. Of the workbench, it is first worthwhile that in the panel on the left, you can see in which application that you are working. Many Vinyl installations have dozens of applications running, therefore, before you start development, it is always worthwhile to have a look here. Because it is so important, the name of the application is also mentioned in the left top corner. That way, when you are doing development, the name of the application remains always visible. In the center of the screen, you can directly access the last rules or pages that you have modified. To improve productivity throughout your development, direct access to often used modules is also provided through the tiles at the top of the screen. For the system administrators, the workbench also provides access to the Vinyl integrated design environment, usually called IDE. You can access the IDE by clicking on the IDE button in the right top corner. Here, in the IDE, applications can be set up, connections to multiple databases can be made and automatic translations maintained. The IDE is also where you provide release management to allow applications to go from the development phase into operational deployment, and where you can monitor the actual and historic use of the system. Finally, the IDE is the place where you can define users and their roles. Don't feel overwhelmed by all this. Most developers almost never access the IDE. Consider the IDE mainly as the area where you can combine simultaneous access to many different types of databases, and where you can manage releases of your software as well as translations. In this course, the IDE is only used to set the defaults for your applications, which is what we are now going to do. Setting the defaults for your applications is part of the localization process. You can define the localization per user. One example of what the localization does is that it sets the date format for that user for her or his region. For example, the same date field will appear for a European user as day, month, year, while an American user sees the date in the format as month, day, year, and a Chinese user will see the date as year, month, day. To set the localization per user, we click on User Management on the IDE dashboard. As you will see, you are already defined as the administrator for your development environment. Double-click on the admin username to get to your user panel. Click on the localization accordion, and you see it expand downwards with options that you can modify. Select Locale to get the drop-down list of regions and countries. Set it to your preferred region, and set the time zone and language according to your situation and preference. What is worthwhile to mention is that Vinyl is built in itself. The user interface of your Vinyl environment is, itself, a Vinyl application. That means that all the visualizations that you see here, you can implement very easily in your own application. Based on the definition of your data tables, some items will even be generated automatically. For example, drop-down selection listings such as you saw here for your locale setting. The next thing that you can do now is setting your currency symbol. We can do that from the Vinyl workbench. To return to the workbench, click on the Workbench button in the right top corner. Now click on the Data Source button, which is indicated in blue. As you will see, there is one data source defined for your application. In the right panel, click on Edit and you get the pop-up panel for the data storage layer. To change the currency symbol, click on the Utilities accordion. Most items that you see here, you will never have to access. Now, click on the Advanced Settings icon. In the next pop-up panel, you can use the drop-down listing to set the currency in which you will store amounts in your database. That is it. Now click on the Workbench button in the right top corner to return to the workbench. Your Vinyl environment is now set up and you are ready to start development. We will do that in the next lectures. First, let's have a look at the application that you will build during this course. During the next topic in this lecture, Getting Certified, I suggest you to immediately start with an application that you make for an existing customer or end user. That will give you immediate experience in building something from scratch. By yourself. but feel free to start by building the exciting app that I will build with you during the coming lectures. Let's have a look at what you will then have built by the end of this course. In low-code application design, during the analysis phase, you already start with the database design. For your application we will do the same. You will get used to the Vinyl naming standards, set up tables, link those tables together, define dependencies between each of those tables, and enable the automatic logging of any changes in important tables. You will define a menu structure and create visual representations of these menus to communicate them with your customers. We will introduce best practices for input screens, and you will benefit from Vinyl's wizards to generate fully working data entry programs for your tables. These programs will already have all the dependencies and validations that you have defined in your tables. We will then include graphs and show locations on maps, to improve ease of use and productivity for the end users. We will produce reports with queries to select and sort not only on codes but also on descriptions, and, finally, we will create month-end procedures to update historic information and initialize fields. Or, as I suggested before, you will do all of that already in an application that you build for one of your customers or end users. That will also help you to get certified. As we mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, this course is all about becoming a full-stack developer in a low-code environment. As a full-stack developer, you need to be proficient in the many technical aspects of application design. From database design to setting up security. From creating input screens to producing reports. From analyzing workflows to providing documentation. But at Low Code for All, we pay particular attention to your interaction with end users and customers. One reason of why the Agile development methodology is so productive is because you talk directly to the end user. While building the application, you already present your results and listen to the responses. Then, taking into account your professional expertise, you decide how you can best accommodate the requests of your customer. To become a certified no-code developer at Low Code for All, you therefore have to make an application for a real customer. You can already do that during the course itself. Instead of making the sample application that we use in this course, you can take the specifications from your customer and build an application based on those specifications. In order to do that, you will first have to find a customer and interview them to analyze their objective. Therefore, in the next lecture, we will first pay attention to doing such an interview. Before doing the interview, it is advisable to also watch the third lecture. The third lecture deals with defining the tables for your application, and the content and structure of those tables depend on the requirements of the customer. The application for your customer should include the functionality that we discuss in the course. The definition of a customer for in this situation is somebody who is looking for a data processing application and who will pay, or give a reward, to the developer or company that provides a satisfactory solution. As the famous saying says, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And for a full-stack developer, that is, going through all the design and development steps to provide a customer with a satisfactory application. Complete the course, develop an application, and become a certified low-code developer. I hope that you will surprise me with your application.
Don't forget to recap the terms that you used in this lecture.
Linda, thank you for reminding me. But only in the next lecture, I start with the terminology. This lecture, I can end with a special offer for all the developers who pre-register for our unique low-code development course. Those early birds are lucky birds. Become a low-code professional yourself. Start benefiting from developing applications in days and weeks instead of months and years. Impress your end users. Impress your customers. Experience that low-code developers are high achievers. In January 2024, our low-code developers course starts, and you can reserve your place now. You can do the course within a week, or take your time, and spread the lectures over 2 months. The choice is yours. Because you have watched this video, we have a unique offer for you. You can now get the complete developers course, with all the animated lectures, for just €35. And that includes having your own development environment to build your application. The first 300 people who register will also receive the Low Code for All steel enamel cup that shows that low-code developers are high achievers.
Are you ready to become a low-code professional? Then register today at lowcode4all/academy. We welcome you at the next lecture.